All right, so today we're diving into something a little different. We're trying to get a picture, like a portrait, of a guy, Caribou Long John, but all we've got are these little snippets, these intriguing bits and pieces of his life.
It's wild, though, isn't it? Like how much you can glean from just a name, maybe a date, a couple of lines someone wrote about themselves once. It's like those messages in a bottle, you know?
Totally. So we've got Caribou, born 1979, raised by his mom, Joyce Clark. He says he had, quote, all the benefits a child could hope for growing up in Diobu, which is part of Port Harcourt, Nigeria. I had to look that up, by the way.
I think I did too. Geography is not my strong suit.
But anyway, Port Harcourt, apparently back then, big economic hub, but also, like a lot of places experiencing that kind of growth, lots of inequality. So right away, I'm picturing young Caribou in this environment, right? Did he see both sides of that, the good and the bad? How'd that shape his worldview, you know?
Absolutely, and it makes you wonder about those benefits he mentions. Is that naivete? Irony? Or was he really kind of insulated from all that? It's one phrase, but man, it gets you thinking.
No, for sure. Speaks volumes about how those early years stick with us, right? So we go from there. He goes to Sacred Heart Primary School, then Stella Maris College, both in Port Harcourt. Do those names tell us anything, education-wise, about what he might have been exposed to?
Yeah, they do scream kind of structured upbringing, probably Catholic, right?
Makes sense.
Adds another layer to this image of Caribou we're building, doesn't it? Values, social circles, all that.
Like adding brushstrokes to a portrait, exactly. And then, just when you think you've got him pegged, boom, he joins the Nigerian Navy Band.
Yeah, that's not what I was expecting. Not your typical career path.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder about the guy, right? What drew him to music and why the Navy of all things.
Right. Was he like some musical prodigy? Did he just want something different, crave adventure? What was the Navy Band even like back then?
So military bands, especially in Africa, they have this whole history, often very prestigious, playing at important events, even competing internationally. You don't just walk into that, you know? It takes real skill, dedication.
Definitely not just some casual gig. This was serious business. And yet the information we have just says ultimately not successful in the Navy. No big stories of him storming off stage, no tales of high seas shenanigans, just not successful.
Yeah, and that, of course, leaves us with more questions than answers. What does successful even mean in this context? You know, was it about musical chops, meeting their standards, something else entirely? Whose definition of success are we talking about here, his or theirs?
Did he find he loved, like, jazz, but he didn't fly in the rigid military world? Or did he just decide the whole sailor thing wasn't for him?
Frustrating, but also kind of cool, right? We get to fill in the blanks.
Exactly. So we've got a guy who appreciated the finer things growing up, right? Goes from structured schooling straight into the discipline of the Navy Band, but it doesn't work out. What happens next? What path did Caribou carve out after that?
That's the million-dollar question. So, listeners, that's what we leave you with. What do you think became of Caribou Long John? Is he living a quiet life somewhere, miles away from music and schedules? Or did all this spark a different passion, something totally unexpected? Makes you think, really? Everyone's got a story, and sometimes the best ones are the ones we never get to hear the ending to.